Hello, welcome to Soapbox Speakers. Our tagline for this episode is May means May, just as Brexit means Brexit.
I'm glad. I'm so glad you started with that. Couple of little points for this episode. We have somebody in the room with us, so if you hear noises of a third person, that'd be why. I don't know if they want to be introduced. Probably should have checked beforehand.
I don't mind.
Well, that came through on the audio.
Did it? Fantastic. Did it not?
It didn't.
It didn't. Okay. They said they don't mind, so it's Alex.
It's Alex.
Whey! She has a cold, so we're going to leave her be. Also, I'm drinking sparkling water, so when you hear the shh and the psh, it's probably me. I'm not going to stop drinking it though for the podcast because I don't care about you enough.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, if it's that sound and the sound of us drinking that puts you off, maybe reassess your life and listen to this podcast, really.
We're going to lose our 18 viewers. Okay, May means May. May does mean May.
Yeah.
If anything, the 37% of the party should be listened to, Matt. Even though it's not a majority, they should be heard.
I mean,
that's what they were arguing.
that
for.
is literally how democracy works. So yeah, bringing it. But it was interesting to hear these arguments being made by conservative politicians
who are also making the argument of
who didn't apply this to the result of the referenda.
It's almost like the referendum wasn't actually about the will of the people and was more about the will of the politicians.
Well, no.
Yeah, it is. They want to get out of the fucking tax. They want to get out
they
of the
do after
shit.
the fact, but the origin of the referendum was David Cameron trying to appease his voter base.
Well, yeah, I know that. Yeah, but my point being is at this point now, it's not like we need to uphold the will of the people. It's we want the tax breaks, man, and we don't give a fuck about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another example of Mog being highlighted as the twat he is.
God, I want to shoot Mog in the face with a homemade gun. I keep saying that, but not being funny, it plays around in my head a lot. I'm like, if good politicians get shot in the face with homemade guns, can we at least have bad politicians shot in the face with homemade guns as well? Oh, even things up a bit.
But then, how would we be any better than them? And I'm really glad you bring this up, because this is actually a point I want to discuss.
And I think it's moral reasoning like that, which means that nothing ever changes.
Oh, bold claim. This is good. No, I like that. Hold on to that argument. Remember it.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
No. It's a perfect. It's a good argument. So I've noticed a certain trend recently, which I'm a little bit alarmed by. And what it is it can be summed up with the meme that was doing the rounds. It has its origins in Tumblr, which is Nazi lives don't matter.
Ooh.
Now, let's deconstruct the meme, first of all. Nazi lives don't matter is a paraphrasing and a homage to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Oh, is it?
Well, of course it is.
Okay.
Nazi lives don't matter. Black Lives Matter. Right? Blue lives matter.
I guess
every life
you can
matters.
join the two
it is
together.
A continuation of that debate.
I never had that connection because I was like, it's a fairly obvious thing to say about the situation, and it doesn't necessarily play off of the Black Lives Matter.
Oh, it's not playing
shit. No, Black Lives Matter.
It's not playing. It's not playing. Well, actually, I'd argue first of all, it is playing off Black Lives Matter. It's using.
No, I believe you. I just never connected it.
It's manipulating that phrase. So, regarding the Black Lives Matter movement, because it does say a lot about the message and the intended message of the author of this meme. Black Lives Matter is questioning police brutality or perceived brutality, however you want to frame it, against the frequency and ease with which police officers will open fire on someone who is black.
Case in point, that very, very I still get a little bit angry when I think about it. The black security guard, who stopped a shooting from occurring, was without killing the guy. Mm-hmm. Let's be clear about that. Was holding him hostage essentially. Well, not hostage. Was under citizen's arrest.
Secured.
Citizen's arrest. Had him secured, and the police turn up and shoot the security officer because he's black. Yeah. There's no two ways about that.
Let's just clarify, because he was a black guy holding a gun.
Yeah. Oh, even though he had security blazoned on his top.
Context doesn't matter. They believed he was a threatening situation, so they shot him.
And he wanted to be a policeman as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah. So, I mean,
that's a movie waiting to happen.
Yeah. On top of that, like, keep in mind the whenever gun regulation is talked about, the phrase you quite often hear is the only thing that can stop a guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. We have a clear example here of a good guy with a gun stopping the guy with a gun, and then subsequently being shot. And the only real explanation we can conclude here is he was unfairly judged because of the colour of his skin. Keep in mind there are
like
the first thing. Look, let's just be clear on this. Ooh. The first thing the cops saw was the colour of this man's skin. They did not see his security uniform. They saw the colour of his skin.
Well, we don't know that.
Right. Well, what else explains it?
Well, I was about to say until you were like, which was fine because you had to finish your point. That's fair enough. There were two ways you can take it. Either it was the colour of his skin, or it was the fact that he was holding a gun.
Okay, I'm with you.
So this is either a cops shoot black people argument, or it's a nobody should have guns argument because it gets you shot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even if you're a security guard.
Yeah.
So if it's not racist, get rid of your guns. If it is racist, sort out your police force. But either way, America, you've got issues.
Either way, that incident is a problem.
Oh, fucking hell.
Anyway.
Sorry.
So Nazi lives don't matter. Now, when it says Nazi, I don't feel it's referring to Nazi Germany Nazis, because
no, it's not.
There are no Nazis.
Neo-Nazis.
Yeah, it's referring to like the alt-right and neo-Nazis. So it is effectively arguing neo-Nazis and the alt-right do not matter, and we can do whatever we want to them, feeling morally superior. I think it's fair to say that is the underlying message of that meme.
Yeah. Well, if it is a direct parody of Black Lives Matter, they are essentially just saying treat Nazis like we treat black people now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you can feel morally justified in opening fire. I'm sure those officers felt justified in opening fire against that security guard. I don't think it's because. I don't think the two. This is going to sound odd, but I don't think the two officers go around day to day thinking, "I really want to shoot a black guy."
No,
that's not what that is. It's that. Well,
that was I don't want to die.
It's that a system has been set up within the police force that allows them to engage in open fire in such a way that all they have to say is that their lives felt threatened. There is literally like a sequence of dialogue that they have to say to justify any shooting, and as long as they say that, they're in the clear. And police officers know this. And the only thing that this does, and what it does, is it unfairly biases towards the killing of black people and minorities. Let's be clear, but
predominantly black.
Yeah, and I would argue probably also your police officers are more likely to open fire in economically deprived areas, and there is a correlation between the colour of one's skin and what economic demographic you sit in. Anyway, so Nazi lives don't matter. Another one that was doing the rounds was first they came for Katie Hopkins, and I did nothing. Then they came for Piers Morgan, and I said he was hiding behind the sofa. Now the poem in question was written by a survivor of the Nazi regime. I don't think he was Jewish. I believe he was.
Oh, is there a full poem to go along with that?
Oh, yeah, well, it's a paraphrasing of an actual poem, which is that first they came for...
Oh, yeah, no, I know the original part. I thought that somebody had done an entire parody.
So, and it's a warning of how to recognise the stirrings of fascism and authoritarianism and how rapidly that can become genocide.
It's very fucking ironic that they are using it in the way that they are.
They're using it as like, well, forget the underlying message of this poem, because all I really want to do is
get rid of Katie Hopkins.
Is do a little signal, a little signal, and say, oh look, I'm quite well read because I know about this poem.
No, that's not why people are sharing it.
That's not why people are sharing it, but the author. I'm sorry, you've clearly missed the fucking point. Yeah. Anyway, so this sparked a debate because I've seen friends of mine share this and share it without irony. It's a clear endorsement of this. Now, and it's relevant. Like, first of all, the Katie Hopkins one was when she left LBC, so that was near the beginning of this year, so nearly a year ago. Actually, I think it might have been over a year ago. So at the time, that joke partially makes sense, and I can kind of give it a pass. But it's redoing the rounds, and like you particularly see it on like Fight the Right Facebook groups and stuff. So again, this is an alarming thought process that a lot of people who are kind of trying to, in parentheses, fight the right, now feel morally justified in completely disregarding right wing, far right, and neo-Nazi groups. Now, let me just be clear: this is in no way me defending neo-Nazis or the far right or the alt-right. It is me fighting for equality. It is me saying that law exists for a reason, and it is meant to be impartial.
You went on a little mission there. Yeah. I enjoyed that. I've got a couple of things.
Go on.
Violence is the last resort of the incompetent.
Right.
And that's from, I can't remember exactly where, some sci-fi book from the 1960s or whatever. I fucking love it though, because the more I think about it, the more it applies. Like, if you are resorting to violence, at some point, somebody's fucked up.
Yeah.
If you can you think of a single situation where violence would be justified in using, but nonetheless it is the last resort of the incompetent because somebody has fucked up along the way.
The Troubles?
The what?
The Troubles?
The Troubles?
The IRA.
What? Violence isn't the last resort of the incompetent when it comes to the IRA. I think that violence is the result of the incompetency of the British Empire.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, yeah. No,
right?
Yeah.
Like, somebody definitely fucked up there.
Yeah.
So, if you are considering using violence to solve your problems, you've already fucked up, and stop and reassess your situation and see if you can fix that. Especially if it's meditated violence. Like, there is no reason to be violent.
Ooh, the French Resistance.
The French Resistance? Yeah. What was that?
The French Resistance.
Which one?
The Nazi,
are we talking Nazi? Oh, right,
Nazi occupied
we're talking
France
World War II. Right, okay. Sorry, man. The French have resisted quite a few invasions over the span of human history. I was but in hindsight, I should have probably been more on the ball there.
Right.
Yeah. Well then, I understand. Like, again, like in the situation,
that's just
I've been invaded.
Yeah,
I've been invaded by the Nazis. Resisting with violence thereby is justified. However, I would say
they were also
they fucked up after World War One and the sanctions they put on Germany, which
they fucked
accumulated
up in the prelude up to World
right.
War One.
Yeah, so it is still the last resort of the incompetent. It's just not the people who are initiating the violence aren't.
But then it's not the last resort of the incompetent. Its violence is caused as a last resort in response to incompetence.
Okay, but that doesn't sound as good. But I get your point. Anyway, yeah. So my argument would be if you need to kill Katie, if your only option is to kill Katie Hopkins, or take her away and put her somewhere.
Yeah.
Sort your life out. There are better ways of dealing with her. Not engaging with her.
Same with the alt-right.
Yeah. Well, because and also I hate to say this, but just because you don't think it's okay, there are enough people out there who are racist and bigoted and alt-right and nationalist for it to be a legitimate opinion. They are representing a significant portion of the population, and regardless of whether or not you like that, you have to accept that, and the only way you can change that is by changing the hearts and minds of people.
And if you fail to do that, and the alt-right or Nazis or fascists gain power, that is a result of your incompetence,
or as a result of their amount of money. But it's the same difference. But no, because at that point maybe not, because if they gain power without having a majority, say Trump,
Yes.
Then at that point it is because of the system is fucked, and it's perfectly okay to rebel against the system.
Here's the question,
it's just not okay to kill people who you don't agree with.
Yeah, but with that scenario, are we now saying that someone is justified in trying to assassinate Trump?
You see, now this is something that is like this is an interesting question, because violence is the last resort of the incompetent, right? But we've already established that it's not necessarily your incompetency that's caused it. So, like, I would argue yes.
Okay.
Like, if somebody assassinated Trump, I would give them a gold star, because he's killing people. Like, there's no two ways about that. His actions are directly impacting.
Every president in history has killed people.
Yeah, but like, yeah, you've got a point. But I'm talking like Tory party kill people, as in like their active changes have resulted in the deaths of 120,000 people.
So we're okay to kill Tories?
I mean, my argument would be like, well, we're not, because of the laws we have in place in order to be able to...
No, it's not a question of law, it's a question of
morality.
Morally justified.
I would argue that, yes.
Law doesn't equal morality, as much as it strives to.
Oh yeah, that's true. I would argue yes.
Okay,
Frankly.
I mean, I wouldn't.
I know you wouldn't.
Because I don't think we're quite there yet.
But I would...
But I'm not... But in my own head, I'm not clear where there is.
But like, I would argue yes, but only because there is no situation in which they get tried for their crimes and put in jail. That is never going to happen. But that should. By law, the Tory party should be...
If law were moral.
Yeah. Well, no. Even by law. Like, the UN has gone, the Tory party austerity measures are causing a massive amount of poverty, and that is fucking not okay, right?
Well, then you can bring them to trial in the international court.
Yeah, but
why has no one done that?
Because they have money. Because nobody fucking cares about the poor people.
Right. Oh, so because, so you economically don't have the ability to do that. So what we're actually saying is that people who are directly affected by their decisions are actually the ones who are justified in killing them. Anyone else, it's not, you're doing it on someone else's behalf.
Yeah, I guess, but like...
Which is an interesting caveat, and one I kind of am more inclined to agree with.
But like doing it on somebody else's behalf... but if you can do it on somebody else's behalf, it's thereby justified anyway.
Is it?
Potentially. I don't know, maybe not. Like, for example... Yeah, this person really deserves to die, but we don't have the ability to do it, so we're going to hire somebody to do it for us.
It's an interesting point in terms of like legal philosophy, because if someone is murdered, the trial that's brought against the murderer is not done by the victim; it's done by the state on behalf of the victim.
Yeah.
Like murder is kind of unique in that respect when it comes to applications of justice and law.
Yeah.
Or malpractice that leads to the death of someone.
Yeah.
In those instances, it's the state or an interested party bringing it against someone on behalf of the victim, the deceased.
Yeah.
So like that's odd tangent, I know, but anyway.
No, it's okay.
Like what I was kind of wanting to talk about was just the. There's a bit of a kind of misunderstanding and it's not a kind of lack of appreciation as to why certain things happened historically. So I've had debates with people regarding this Nazi Lives Don't Matter and regarding the tweet-sick conversation regarding Katie Hopkins and Piers Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
The reason one of the reasons the Nuremberg trials were set up is, well, firstly because of the massive because for the first time we actually had a record keeping in detail, and it became global knowledge as to the atrocities carried out by the Axis powers, but also it was to prevent what's the word where you take the law into your own hands? Vigilantism.
Yeah.
And loads of former Nazi officers and soldiers just disappearing because they've been killed, which there was a lot of after the
especially in the first couple of days after.
Yeah, there was a fuck ton of that. And understandably, let me just be clear, I understand why people did that.
Like in the Fury film, oh, you an SS officer? I'll just step to this side. Like,
yeah, it's a good example. Well,
it's a fictional movie, but yeah.
No, but like that, you can understand why that happened.
Yeah.
And that's what it's framing. It is referencing the fact that many soldiers on the Allied side did do that. Because fuck them.
What's that line? You know, like, I can't remember what film it's from, but it's
Band
like...
Brothers?
It's not the... No, it's not the... It's not the things that I was ordered to do that haunt me. It's the things I wasn't ordered to do.
Oh, Camaro. Gran Torino. It's Clint Eastwood film.
Clint Eastwood. Holy fucking shit, that's a good film.
It is a good film. The Nuremberg trials occurred partly because of this, and also to create the legal framework to deal with issues of genocide. And that was set up so that justice could in part be given. And there were mistakes made within the Nuremberg trials, or at least things that I would argue are not okay. So, for example, there were acquittals given to certain
scientists
and officers who... the best example I know of is the guy who ran Unit 731, which was a human experimentation biological weapons research facility set up in China by Japan.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's just... If you want to learn about that, by all means...
If you want to learn what humanity is capable of, it's just...
It is...
That.
It is the worst. It is one of the most horrific things I've ever read about. So I tread softly if you're going to actually do a deep dive on that, because that did affect me.
It makes like the idea of like torturing sound kind of fluffy, you know.
Yeah, it makes the idea of torturing someone to death as punishment justifiable.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, that is the only way that even begins to make that person experience some form of justice for what they've done.
Yeah, but they still wouldn't understand, would they?
Yeah. Anyway.
It's like you just got to put a dog down, really.
Yeah. Well, this is the interesting point. This guy wasn't put down. This guy was pardoned on the condition that all the information that was gathered from that human experimentation was handed over to Allied powers, which it was.
Yeah.
The guy later went on to found Green Cross, which is a Japanese medical company that still exists today.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, Nuremberg trials has its issues, but one of the things that was created was the International Convention of Human Rights. These are universal laws that apply to everyone.
And sorry, just to backtrack a little bit, the reason he got off of that, right, kind of explains why so many soldiers and officers went missing.
Well, no, because the Nuremberg trials took years.
Exactly, but like the reason so many people would have shot the officer there and then was on the off chance that they would get off of it.
Oh, I see.
Like,
I mean, I get what you're saying, and yeah, that is a fair nod. Yeah, you're right. Concern over whether or not they would actually ever face consequences. Yeah.
Like Hitler wouldn't have made it out of the bunker. Like, you know, like
just prime example,
no one would have made it out of the bunker.
Prime example of why do you think Osama bin Laden wasn't captured and was shot?
Yeah.
And why do you think he was buried at sea? I'll tell you why I think he was buried at sea. I think it's because
because he had about 100 bullets in him.
Yeah, I think when the helicopter landed on the aircraft carrier, I think they dumped what was left of their rounds while he was still in the helicopter into him. I don't think there was anything left of him.
Well, they wouldn't have shot him while he was in the helicopter.
Why not?
Because he would have fucked up the helicopter.
Why?
Bullets go through people.
Do they?
Yes.
The
military grade rounds would.
Would they?
Depending on the rounds that they have.
Would they?
Like if you're dumping 100 bullets into someone, it's gonna go through.
Well, first of all,
machine guns chopping down trees.
First of all, the undercarriage of a Black Hawk is bulletproof.
Yeah, but exactly. So ricochets, Matt.
So it's gonna hit the base and then come back up into a body.
Okay.
This is a weird thing to focus on.
No. It's. I understand that it's nitpicking, right? But I'm genuinely like, how could you, like, if you were genuinely talking about dumping entire clips of ammo into a body, lying in a helicopter with all of your mates in,
right,
and you don't see an issue with that.
Okay, fine.
Okay, all right.
Fine. There's an issue there. I phrased it poorly.
No. But and I understand that I took that way further than I needed to. Like that wasn't like the bigger deal that I was thereby like expressing it as. It was just like I was like amazed that you wouldn't be aware of the mechanics of like bullets and
I'm aware. I don't see it as the same issue. I believe a trained, what is it? What are they?
SAS.
They weren't SAS.
They were SEAL.
Navy SEAL. What group were they? Group 5? Like,
I don't know.
Like there's a classification that they have that basically means they're the best of Navy SEAls.
Which means they might just make it into the SAS.
Yeah. I'm actually inclined to agree. The other point I was going to make is I have a strange feeling their loadout was a submachine gun rather than an assault rifle, because they were going into a close quarters battle scenario, so they don't need a rifle.
Interesting.
Anyway,
yeah, all right, fair enough. Like that. Just as a by the way, me going and they would have barely made it into the SAS. Ooh, right, like. We still glorify our best killers, don't we?
That's not what you're glorifying about the SAS.
Is it not?
No.
What am I glorifying about it then?
Well,
please visit my intention.
No. I'm saying that when people like hold the SAS on this kind of pillar, it's got nothing to do with the fact that they're trained killers.
What's it got to do with then?
Got to do the training process that they've had to go through, the recruitment process, the selection process, and the series of things that
the fact that they're the best of the best.
Yeah.
They're the best soldiers we have.
Yeah.
Thereby our best killers.
But it's not the fact that they're killers that we're celebrating. I mean, you could make the argument that anything that is celebrating,
but
is celebrating the military is ultimately celebrating that. You could make that argument. I don't agree.
No, but I'm just like drawing comparisons to like, you know, celebrating like the best gladiators of your time, or like the best soldiers of the warriors of your time. Like we're still doing that.
Well, I think there's also an element of
like a national pride.
I think there's also like the pillar of standard that they're held to, and the what's the word? The pillar of standard that they're held to. I think another factor of that is also that their training program is the benchmark for pretty much any other special forces in the world.
Yeah.
So I think there's also an element of that. There's a pedigree there that stood the test of time because it's used as the benchmark for everyone else.
Fair.
So like there is a part of that, and I think anyone who is in the military in particularly special forces in any country is aware of that.
No, I get you.
And which is why that debate keeps coming up, like who's better, Delta Force or SAS. Interestingly, just to pitch in my 2 cents, my personal favourite special forces group is the SBS, which is Special Boat Service, who are actually a next rung higher in the SAS.
Do you know why they're my favourite?
Why?
Because they fucking trained me how to scuba dive.
That's why. Cool, right.
A load of ex-SBS were the people who were the scuba diving trainers, and they were it was so great because like we'd have our lesson, and then they'd be like, and here's what we teach you if you were in the military, right? So like, we've taught you all of this stuff about how to be recognised when you're out at sea, you know, you've stranded. Now here's what you'd actually learn if you were in the military, and it would be like how to hide, how to make sure nobody discovers you, and all that sort of shit. And I was like, oh, that's great. And we learned about like what guns would work underwater, how explosions and explosives work underwater and shit like that. And I was like, oh man, this stuff's dope.
That's terrifying.
Also terrifying.
Explosions underwater are horrific.
Oh my god, okay, just like... Short version, if it's shallow water and there are explosives in the water, just don't go near the water. and I don't mean like don't go near the explosives in the water, just don't go near the water. Go near the water. Because the explosive waves can just bounce off of the surface and the floor and just travel. Yeah. So like you can literally have like, if you had like an area and you had one person like if you had people scattered evenly, you wouldn't be able to figure out which ones would die and which ones wouldn't, and it could be all over the place. It's fucking weird.
It amplifies the effective lethality range of detonation. Yeah, but
it can be random as well. So like you can have one person 100 meters away who's okay, and another one 100 meters away in the other direction who's fucked
because of how the waves bounce
and how the floor is as well. You know, all that
well,
sort of shit.
How the waves bounce is determined.
But also, AK-47 underwater.
That doesn't surprise me.
I know, right? Like Jesus Christ.
I
hope that's true.
I've always wondered,
I keep thinking about that, and I'm like, would it really work?
My only issue with that is like, are we talking about like it's now fully submerged? There's no air left in the firearm.
Like
because like the AK-47 relies on like spring. Is it air blowback or is it spring based? I think it's spring based.
Yeah.
But so like so the dynamics of that spring operating in water are completely different to it operating in air.
True.
And it's even more different if you've got it partially full of water. Okay, right.
Yeah,
so will it fire on fully automatic fire, or will it just fire around?
I don't know.
And also the other thing worth pointing out is the lethality of bullets underwater is shit.
They discovered that the weapon happily still fires while underwater.
Yeah.
Not only that, it actually reloads itself faster because H2O can't be compressed.
Oh, so it's a recirculator then. Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck, man? That's
cool.
amazing. So like, yeah, because he was talking about it. He was like, yeah, like AK-47, if you're gonna fire it underwater, like an M4, you need to get like some like special adapter in order for it to work underwater. And I was like, wow,
that's pretty cool.
Like, yeah, but the bullet range is significantly reduced.
Yeah, and like the lethality.
Still better off with a harpoon.
Yeah, or a spear gun.
Would harpoon and spear gun be potato?
No, because a harpoon you're firing from deck into. Well, you're not actually trying to fire into
it's
water.
technically a spear gun.
A harpoon you're trying to fire into living organic matter when it's surfaced.
Okay, so I'm thinking of a spear gun when I say a harpoon.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
So
got really sidetracked there. What
we did. I'm just talking about like what would seem to be the rise of quite authoritarian values when it comes to what we're justified in doing against people we disagree with.
And I love the fact that we have reached the opinion of man the harpoons.
Accurate.
So, I love the internet so much.
The other thing to touch on here is because there have been recent developments in this kind of thing. So, for example, corporations like Google and Facebook and Patreon have been removing funding and advertising revenue, and even linking to certain people, internet influencers. On multiple different platforms. Prime example would be things like Countdown Killer and Sargon of Akkad. And
I fucking hate Sargon though.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Sargon as well, but also I really dislike that a bunch of laws have just kind of come into place to stop him from making money from what was his living.
True.
And I also dislike the fact that this is not not just a legislation decision; it is a corporate decision. Corporations are deciding that we don't want you on our platform because we don't agree with you, because we hold these values politically.
No, it's not even that we don't agree with you. It's we don't want to have that image portrayed upon our company.
There's multiple reasons, and that is one of them, definitely. But in the case of things like Patreon, the CEO has quite explicitly said, no, we're doing this because we don't like you.
Wow.
This is the rise of corporatocracy on the internet scene. I'm just saying, this isn't legislation now. This is corporate entities that basically control the market deciding this.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing. If you want, let's say you want to set up a new platform where people can do this. Legislation is also being passed, like copyright protection stuff, which requires you to make use of algorithms that allows you to catch this stuff, or you have people on screens monitoring everything that's uploaded and doing it, which no one can afford to do. So you have to use these algorithms. Unfortunately, the trademark and ownership of those are by these singular corporate entities. Google, for example. So that means that the competition has to buy a licensing agreement from Google. Is Google going to give a licensing agreement to its competition?
Well, at least radio's going to come back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But my point here is mechanisms are being put at play which, oddly, people seem to be clamouring for and crying for, hence the sharing of these memes, that in actual fact means that a lot of stuff is being taken away from us, and we've not really considered the consequences of it. And we're handing a huge amount of power to a very select group of people. We're handing over the internet to a select group of people to control and manage. All because
we're not handing it over.
All because Sargon of Akkad said something edgy.
Well, it wasn't Sargon necessarily.
No, but that's my point. All because there's some edgy shit on the internet and it hurt your fifus. I'm so that is it.
I know, and it sucks. And it's not okay. And how do we stop it?
I mean, how we stop it is an interesting question, because there are people trying to do that very thing.
Because right now I can't be you can't say all men suck or all women suck on Facebook and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know,
how do we stop it? There have been people that have tried and have been shot down multiple times. So this is a great question. I have no idea, because any attempt to do so has been shot down. But in some instances by people within Fight the Left.
Yeah.
Who ardently support this, and this is the reason I bring this up, because this is adopting authoritarian values Let's just be clear. The Nazi Party, they classified themselves as socialist. That isn't me saying they were socialist, but my point is they were left.
Yeah.
Or at least they represented themselves as left. But they were also populist. And it's the popularist part that's important here. Equally, this narrative of Nazi lives don't matter is a popularist narrative. It's got nothing to do with what's morally justified. It's got nothing to do with concern for our fellow man. It's got everything to do with you using draconian values and systems to control people you don't like.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to say that out loud. I'm seeing this increasingly. And there's a great line from... I forget the name of the show, but there's a line in that where the main character is asked, like, "Are you a conservative or are you a Democrat or a Republican?" He says, "Well, most of my views align with the Republicans, but I'm not vocal about that because I dislike the fact that to be Republican now, I also have to be homophobic." Now, I consider myself quite left-leaning, but I dislike the fact that I now also have to adopt some authoritarian values and have to stick to a very strict regimen of identity politics in order to be considered that. And if I am not that, I am labelled a neo-Nazi or an alt-righter or a crypto-fascist or all these other fucking buzzwords that most people that use have no fucking clue of their meaning and reason for existing. So, yeah. Like I was trying to... That needs dealing with.
I was trying to think of something I could add to that, but I mean, you've pretty much like nailed the hammer on the head there. Yeah. So hammered the nail on the face. Yeah. Face the hammer on the nail, something like
nudge
that.
Nudge was as good as a wink to a blind man. But yes, and interestingly, I want to do a deeper dive on this to talk about this perhaps in a later podcast, but there is some interesting...
Well, we can revisit it.
Yeah, there's some interesting things happening with respect to legislation, law, and corporate behaviour. And, the free market model, talking about competition and stuff, has deliberately kind of been shut down because now corporate entities are so massive and so interconnected that ultimately control of the market boils down to a few people.
It's to reference back to previous podcasts, we are living in the dystopian future.
We are increasingly so.
This is the beginning of the path which leads us to corporate wars.
Yeah, and you were completely right when you said radio and shortwave is going to come back.
No, you said that.
No, you said radio.
You said it before in a previous podcast. I was referencing back to that.
Oh, okay, right.
Sorry, man. No, it's all you. You're always right.
I was completely right when I said radio would be coming back because it will. People will defer. Well,
I'm already on it, buying that boat, setting up that little pirate radio station.
Having
lots of hippie sex.
This is it. This is actually the next cultural zeitgeist. This is the next counterculture, which is going to be people increasingly disconnecting from all of this and not utilize and trying not to use any of it.
The only problem is that radio's still a thing. Like we still have Radio 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. and so forth. So how would you find... Is there enough frequency left?
Oh, God, yeah.
How much?
There's a lot.
Well, why don't we just set up a fucking radio show?
Well, we can do that.
Let's do it.
There's literally
why are we doing a fucking podcast? This is stupid. I'm turning it off right now.
Well,
no, that's a joke.
First of all, it requires people to connect to that. And also, there's different frequencies used for there's radio stations, and then there's the frequency band that they operate in. Then there's ham radio and the frequency band that runs in. And also, because now all terrestrial television is digital, that frequency band that used to occupy television now isn't used anymore. So that's actually freed up. And it's a question of what is that band going to be used for. I can't remember now.
Cool.
It's been a number of years since I learned of that, so I don't know if there has been development there. It's possible that 5G might take it or something like that. I can't remember now.
Fair.
Anyway, yeah. So I think we've.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the lighter note, Teresa Goblin. Or Gollum May.
God. Yep.
So for those who don't know, there is a video done by the actor who played Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He has dressed as Theresa May, and does a little 2-minute short comedy video. I say comedy. It is a comedy video, but it is also scary. Where he basically combines Theresa May and Gollum, and it is disturbingly accurate.
Yeah, it is unnervingly. What's that word? The uncanny valley.
Yeah.
In robotics, he bears an unnerving resemblance to May, and it's not just because he's wearing her clothes and a wig. The way he holds his face, and the way he talks, it is terrifying.
For those who are umming and ahhing about it, it's a 2-minute video. It's totally worth using some of your data on if you're on a phone. Go watch it right now. And
as opposed to using your data on this podcast.
You've got a point. They might have downloaded it.
That's true.
Except we have nowhere to download it from because we are very, very lazy.
Yes.
I can't remember what I was going to say now. Yeah, so he basically does this whole skit where the deal is, my precious, and it's just great, and I just really wanted to mention it because it's fucking hilarious. And, like I said, accurate. She is kind of just I don't know. Anyway, if you haven't already gone off and watched it, pause it now, go and watch it, and then come back.
Yes.
Because, now there are spoilers. So there's a point where he does the thing that he does in Lord of the Rings, where Gollum has, 2 personas.
Yeah.
So, the good side and the bad side. And in this, it's the good side is Theresa May's no, but we must find out if the people wants the deals. and then he switches to the evil side, and then she's like, no, it's my deal. I want it. I have it.
I must have it.
I made it. I bargained it. I brought it back. It's mine. and then there's the best point in the whole video is the point where essentially he goes but no, the peoples are our friends. And he's like, you have no friends. And it pauses for 10 seconds, and everybody goes, yeah, Theresa May has no friends. That is eerily accurate there. I believe that fundamentally in my core. Nobody is friends with Theresa May. They may say that they are, but nobody is actually friends with her.
Yeah,
it's
funny enough. I do have material and questions regarding that.
Even her husband isn't her friend. If you've ever seen them together, there is no chemistry there. There's no friendship. There's no that is a business arrangement. Through and through.
They got married for tax benefits.
And that is funny and accurate in a number of ways, considering he's paid no tax on his companies for years.
Yeah,
and benefits directly from her policy choices. It's almost oh god.
What you're not suggesting?
I know
there's a moral hazard there.
No, really?
If
you could pick one law to pass that would be forever in place in the UK, what would that law be regarding MPs?
Regarding MPs?
Yeah.
You lose any right to privacy when it comes to your financial arrangements.
Interesting.
That includes marital partners. Or several partners.
Do you know what mine would be?
What?
You have to live on minimum wage, and there's an amendment to it. You cannot have any other income.
Oh, that's interesting. You cannot have any other income. Yeah, no, I like yours. That's good. Because minimum wage is definitely going to go up. Yeah, it's good. So, there was a no confidence vote against May.
There was. Poor May.
Well, she made it.
What a Christmas present.
Yeah. I think I've said this before on this podcast. I cannot help but admire May.
Okay.
It's got nothing to do with what she does or says. Actually, no, it has something to do with what she does. It's got nothing to do with me agreeing with anything she does. Though I'm sure there are some things she does.
She's like a fucking cockroach.
No, she just, what's the word? Her ability to just keep going. Her ability to get knocked multiple times but still function and not have a mental breakdown. I am just amazed by. She's under attack by her opposition. She's under attack by the media. She's under attack by the public, and she's under attack by her own party
and the EU.
And the EU, but somehow she keeps going, and I cannot help but admire that. Her resolve is what I admire.
Mm. Are you possibly? Could there possibly be a comparison between her and Churchill?
Yeah, actually. Well, you say that. Like, Churchill didn't really receive much opposition when he was in power.
True.
And then, interestingly, once the war was over, he was immediately elected out for a Labour candidate. So, yeah, I mean, the tide had turned. Like, I don't think Churchill had a lot of problems to deal with. Don't get me wrong. And, you know, I'm not saying there wasn't resolve there, but it's a very different thing. The people were united behind him, whereas here everyone is united against us, sort of.
True. Alright, fair enough.
So, like, I think another comparison to Thatcher. Thatcher had resolve. Like, she would dig her heels in on everything. So, like, in that sense...
It's more and more accurate, Poundland Thatcher.
Yeah. So, anyway... no confidence vote failed, but
with 37% against her.
Yeah, and it's funny to me that, you know, after a snap election that saw her remain in power, though she did have to negotiate an agreement with the DUP, this wasn't good enough for some within the Tory parties. They felt they should have a second decision on whether or not she should be in power. They didn't agree with the will of the people and wanted to go with the will of the party.
Yeah.
They wanted another chance to decide. So is this maybe them also making the case for another chance to decide?
Argument is a bit flawed.
Why is that?
Because the general election is about you voting who you want to be your MP, who you want as your MP, and then the majority party then decides who they are going to have as their leader. Are you
unfamiliar with strategic voting?
No, I'm not. Right. But fundamentally, like from like that is how it's supposed to work. People vote for the leader they want.
No, but our system isn't designed that way.
Oh.
She called for the general. Like, our system isn't designed as you vote for the party you want. It's designed as
no. You vote for the MP you want.
No. Yes and no. Because it's first past the post, it's a question of what party do you want. I'm trying to think how to structure this. I don't know it well enough to properly do it. Okay. My point is, like, this isn't a direct democracy. It's parcelled up in particular areas.
Yeah.
So, like, some people will vote for their local MP based on what they are saying they are going to do for your region. Yeah. Others will vote for them because of their party affiliation. So, but the fact that you have that divide and it's not clear, that's what you're doing. Yes, there's a decision as to who leads, but there was a decision as to who leads. When David Cameron stepped down, they decided Theresa May. She then called the snap election after the she then called the snap election, and was voted in.
Just about.
Right. So, like, what they're effectively saying is, well, we had a vote for who would replace David Cameron, but can we have another one?
Yeah.
So, yeah, can we have another referendum decision?
Well, no, it's a vote of no confidence. They say they have no confidence in her ability to lead, and then the party has decided that they do.
Yeah, but let's just be clear, that no confidence mechanism wasn't used to deal with the fact they had no confidence in her ability. It had everything to do with putting someone else in power.
True. Which hopefully is why it failed.
But as for what's going on right now, I have a sneaking suspicion it is going to be Brexit in name only. No, actually I don't. Sorry, because there's no way that deal is going to go through Parliament. I don't.
Well, we'll wait and see, but
yeah, I can't. Like, I really hope that deal doesn't go through Parliament. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. It is a shit deal.
It is a shit deal. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm a staunch Remainer and still am, but like, I'm also kind of like, well, fuck it, let's like leave then. I accept the decision of the referendum, but can we just leave?
Yeah.
And if we're going to leave, I'd rather do it on the WTO terms.
Oh, no. Oh, that'd be grim.
It would be, but the alternative is grimmer.
Yeah. I'd rather just not leave.
I mean, I agree with you. I would rather that as well, but...
But no, I'm not even thinking of like what's good for Britain. I'm just thinking of what's good for the world, because we need to be uniting, not separating at this point if we want to stop climate change and save humanity as we know it. So, like, people should stop being like, nah, I want my fisheries back, and people should be like, do you know what? I like eating fish. I want my grandchildren to do that as well.
There is,
but no, of course, because we're still like, nah, climate change isn't real. Like,
oh, it's a cyclical thing. Anyway, sorry, finish your point.
Yeah, it is, and we're accelerating it because we're fucking retarded.
I had this conversation. With someone on Facebook actually, because they made the argument it's a cyclical thing, and then they cited an example where CO2 levels had been higher, which I think it wasn't the Cretaceous period, but it was the period of time where there was no a multicellular organism beyond plant on land.
Wow! All right, yeah.
It was that period of time, and he goes, "Well, the CO2 concentrations were far higher then than they are today." I said, to which my response was, "Yes, and all life at that point in time
was a plant."
No, was had adapted to that level of acidity in the ocean."
Yeah.
Right? And interestingly, at the end of that period, there was a massive period of cooling, which was to do with huge amounts of volcanic activity, which then killed off a huge amount of life. And because of that rich CO2 atmosphere, life evolved that processed that CO2 into oxygen, and then multicellular life on land could occur. Because there was an oxygen-rich atmosphere, because ultimately everything is bound by how powerfully you can run your metabolism. And it's the conditions all life, we run on the fact that we can have a very high metabolism. And in order to do that, we have to eat other things.
Eat people.
But plants stay in one place so that their metabolism can be that slow, because all they use is light, effectively. Anyway, and then CO2 emissions were sucked out because of that introduction. And that cold period was caused by volcanoes. So the question now becomes, what explains the sudden spike in geological terms in our current temperature spike? Because usually these kinds of massive temperature fluctuations and rapid changes
happen over thousands of years.
Well,
at a minimum.
That, or it's to do with weird solar activity, hence the medieval ice age period.
Yeah.
Or it's to do with meteors or massive volcanic activity. Looks around. Solar is pretty stable. There haven't been any meteors hitting us that would explain
God help us
this.
if there are.
No volcanoes that would explain this. Maybe it's to do with all this millennia locked in carbon that we're now chucking into the atmosphere.
What has changed over the last several hundred years that could possibly explain this? What fundamental changes have occurred?
Oh yeah, we've been taking carbon. Funny enough,
it can't possibly be us, because there can't be any consequences for our actions, because that's not allowed. So we must find a different reason. I'm gonna say
Brexit.
that it is scientists trying to convince us that climate change is real as some sort of economic gain mechanism, or to keep us blinded from the truth that really it's aliens.
Yeah, funny enough,
and the Illuminati are taking over, and Bush did 9/11, and. What else is there? What else can we add into this? I don't know.
We're actually controlled by a secret race,
cloud people,
sub-race of reptiles that
too. Yeah.
Believe that they're a ruling class from Mesopotamia. Anyway, the
fucking people, man. No one.
Interestingly,
nothing funny.
Right.
Part of me's like, we kind of deserve it.
Right.
Look at us.
Here's the interesting thing, because to bring it back around, that period where there was that ice age and there was a mass die-off, a lot of the carbon trapped in the organisms that died during that period are what went on to create the coal and oil fields that we're now using.
Yeah.
So that carbon that was taken out of the atmosphere to make them was locked up and then sunk down, and then slowly over millennia turned to oil, which we are now digging back up, turning into carbon dioxide and dumping into the atmosphere. And we're wondering why it's warming.
Yeah. And eventually cooling. It's warming and cooling. Let me be clear. Those of you out there who are like, it's not warm where I am, it's way colder than it normally is. Climate change is globally the temperature is rising, but what that does is cause essentially
larger temperature differentials.
Large temperature differentials, or in layman's terms, it gets way hotter and it gets way cooler. So like you get both. You fucking stupid wanker.
Righteous.
Fuck you.
Anyway, the other one I heard was, the other argument he countered with is like, well, all of this data is based on scientists with a grind to axe that are looking. No, wait, let me finish.
No, can we coin a grind to axe? That's beautiful. I like that. Somebody with a grind to axe.
And also just to profit for it and justify their specialism as a climatologist. To which my response was, yeah, I definitely became a climatologist for the fast cars and loose women. It's amazing I get any work done, to be fair.
Oh, man.
Yeah, anyway, so, like, there's, that happened.
Yeah. Like, seriously, we need to deal with climate change.
Yeah.
And I mean deal with it on a macro scale, not a micro one. So I'm not like, you need to go out and do recycling. Like, if you feel like mentally well enough, or like you've got enough free time to go and like change some aspects about your life to make yourself more like environmentally friendly, then go for it. But like, I feel like your time would be better spent petitioning your government to change policy than it would be fucking cleaning plastic pots and putting them in the recycling, because they're just going to get burnt anyway and released into the atmosphere.
There's another point I will bring up at some related to climate change and decisions, government decisions that are bad with respect to climate change. But there was another point I had regarding May and the no confidence vote, which is that unfortunately, we are currently in a state where it's career politics. So people are entering the profession of politics not because they have a skill set that means that they can understand negotiations, they can understand economic issues. I'm not saying that there aren't any. I'm just saying you don't need to have any of that in order to succeed in politics, which means that you are having people who don't really have the capacity to understand
cookie-cut Republicans.
Well, no, because this is a left and right issue, right? So when it comes to issues of like climate change, when it comes to issues of legislation regarding the internet, none of these people know how any of these things really work or the mechanisms at play that work. And if they do, it's in a very basic level. And this has occurred because career politics is allowed to work. The law that you suggested adding earlier would actually kind of be a good way to address that.
Because people who actually want to make change would be there, as opposed to people who want to make money.
Not just want to make change, but also have a skill set that means that they're better able to facilitate that. You would be judging politicians based on what they know, not on what they say they're going to do. Yeah. Pandering to popularist opinion. Anyway.
Yeah. Another thing, actually.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit sidetracky here, but like we now live in an age where like you can share information quite easily and quite widely. Yet all of our voting for MPs is essentially still based on like the pamphlet that you get through the door.
Yes.
And like there is no kind of like structured beyond like debates between leaders. There's no real like structured information sharing about the people that are applying for this MP thing,
other than what's generated by
the MP.
by users on the internet. No, because there's
or by the MP, So I feel like another really useful thing to introduce would be this idea of like there is like, and this is going to sound fucking stupid, right? But like there is a YouTube channel where all the MPs get fucking interviewed for the fucking job they're applying for, And you can go and watch that.
Yeah.
And it is, and so the government sends out fucking, like, puts out TV ads, which is literally like, here is a load of places on the internet that you can go and see the MPs in your area.
They would argue that
being interviewed.
They would argue that already happens with things like Question Time and Newsnight.
No, fuck that. That's stupid. That's like, that is not like, I want somebody whose job it is, who, like, I want fucking, like, I don't know, Frank Skinner, right? To interview MPs, right? I want no. It sounds like fucking idiots, stupid, but I want somebody who is like clearly an expert politician and not just a career politician. Somebody who is aware of like the complications and the issues that will come about through being an MP, interviewing all the MPs that apply.
Right.
Because you've got what like between 5 and 10. Per location, so that's a lot of work, right? But I feel like that'd be really useful, and I want that shoved down the throat of everybody in the fucking country, right? I don't want that just being done and left somewhere, and if you want to, you can go and look at it. I want it like, you should go and watch these videos.
It is the backbone.
Watch the videos of the MPs, make your decision off of that. If you need to read further, go ahead, but this is what you need to make a decision, because like people are stupid, and I include myself in that.
Yeah, no, completely.
And so we need, and the whole point of having a government and having this governing body is so that they can make things easier for us stupid people, right? Like that is how it's supposed to work anyway. And so just make it easier for everyone. Just make it easy for them to make a decision. But of course that's not going to happen because career politicians are in charge of what this is, and they want to maintain the situation which allows them to occur. So I don't know.
No, it's a good rant, and yeah.
Fucking bastard.
I don't like. I mean, you made some interesting points.
We could do a grassroots movement of like interview the MP, and like see if we can get people to like kickstart our company. Does he?
Yeah.
Okay. But like, I mean, specifically as a this is.
And Jesus, like Count Dankula, Sargon of Akkad, like there's loads of YouTube people that do this already.
What, interview MPs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sargon has interviewed MPs. Dankula has interviewed.
But nobody is specifically kind of like advertising this and campaigning it as a, this is for you to decide who your MP is.
No.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. That's a different thing.
Rather than I'm interviewing this MP and people who are interested in politics are going to come along and listen to this. Yeah. I'm interviewing this MP not because I'm interested in politics, but because I'm interviewing them for the job that you are voting to hire them into, and so I'm asking hopefully questions that you want to hear about. Yeah. You know,
I don't know.
Do you care about poor people?
I don't know if that. You know? Well, the other thing is, something is only a problem if you're aware of it as a problem.
True.
So, like a lot of people, I don't think global warming is big on their radar or agenda.
I know.
So, like, that doesn't address that issue, right?
But things that are big on people's radar are things like, benefit system, the NHS, the like job rights, the minimum wage, right?
I still think it all falls back onto.
So what I'm saying is, like, I'm not saying like interview all these people and be like, what are you going to do about climate change? You have to interview them based on what is going to be interesting, like what is going to be.
Can I modify your idea?
Useful for the public? Yeah, of course you can modify my idea.
Because I have actually considered doing this as a YouTube channel in and of itself, but like take everything a politician has said, and then put that against what they've, how they voted, how they voted in Parliament. And then how they also deal with correspondence regarding that and what they say.
So not even interview them, just compile what you know.
No,
about
you do also interview them because, like, on the I think it's Parliament.gov website.
Yeah.
There's an email address that for every MP, so you can contact them. Like, can I ask why you voted this way on this issue? And they can give an explanation. Some of it might be horseshit, some of it might not. Some of them may not even respond. But my point is, you can use all of this data to basically give a scoring system to a politician, which is like, this politician is pretty consistent in how they vote in Parliament and how they and what they say they're going to do. This politician is very fucking evasive. This politician is very active in correspondence. This politician is very evasive or does not respond at all. And all of this you can basically turn it into a league table. This is a politician who seems to be the most politician, right?
Yeah.
This is one who doesn't really seem to take the job seriously.
It's a good idea.
Like
it'd need a proper production
totes. But like,
I'm thinking like, actually, I have no idea how I would want to portray that, but like, I think it's very important that you like, and I say this in the nicest possible way, dumb it down so everybody can have it.
Totally.
Because like, so it needs to be like literally like the wording needs to be dumb.
I get you.
So
you
can't have like, this politician is evasive. It needs to be like, this politician will avoid like
answer questions.
Yeah, or this politician, like, I don't know, like it's almost like I would want to find like somebody to do the hosting rather than us, because we're too well spoken. Find someone who is not well spoken to do the hosting, so everybody can understand it.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Carlo would be great. No, he's way well better than both of us. He is on another realm. Yeah. That was a joke. Christ, oh my God, I'd love to have a conversation with Carlo.
Bit of a spicy joke.
Yes. Bit of a spicy joke.
Yeah, a bit edgy.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Well, I'm all about that edge.
Anyway,
I'm not.
Yeah. So
I'm like no.
Bringing it back. Yeah,
sorry. This is another tangent, but like a complete tangent now. Like, I was having a conversation about I don't know if I've already talked to you about this outside the podcast, like the poetry. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were like, "Oh, my poetry is like really kind of like emotional and evocative, and it paints a picture, you kind of, it's very subtle." And they were like, "Your poetry is a bit like a sledgehammer." And I was like, "Yes, boy." So I was like, "Yeah, I'm not all about that edge. I'm all about that sledgehammer."
This is what I think. Do you get it? Yeah. Do you get it?
This is what I think. 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 This is what I think.
Anyway, so,
sorry.
Regarding being equipped to assess long-run impacts with respect to global warming and the economy, and the consequences of decisions made, fracking.
Oh, fucking hell.
Now, fracking has been in the news a bit lately.
Oh, this whole podcast is depressing me.
Because there's been a series of microquakes that have caused the Quadzilla.
No, that's to do with the lizard people being underground and trying to tunnel to Parliament. Also, the cloud people are involved. It's definitely not fracking. Carry on.
I have the floor again. Anyway, there seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding as to why this is important. So people seem to think that it's the fact that it's causing earthquakes, and that those earthquakes might cause damage to property, that is the problem. And that is not the problem.
It's your water.
Yeah.
It's your water.
The problem is that those microquakes mean that there has been underground movement. And the issue is, what has that done to the water table? Are fractures that were there already, have they now expanded? Meaning that the water, the treated water that they're pumping into the shale area, does that now mean that contaminated water is potentially entering an area that we weren't expecting it to? This is one of the reasons why every time once a quake hits a particular threshold, they stop drilling, they stop pumping. It's to ensure that they don't contaminate the water supply. So
it's almost like we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. So the concern is contamination of water supply. It's not so much that it's going to cause some massive earthquake that's going to wipe out a town. That's not me saying we shouldn't be concerned about that, but it is me saying that the real issue here is what it's potentially done to the groundwater.
We need that.
Yeah, we really do need that.
Because it's running out.
Yeah. The other thing is, it's quite questionable how beneficial this gas is actually going to be.
I hate it. I love
right.
that we are now at a point where we're like, let's risk our water source so we can get more oil.
Or gas. Whatever
you want to, like more energy, right?
Yeah.
So we're so blind to what we are as a creature, that we're like, let us risk one of our fundamental building blocks in order to be able to get that thing that makes our lives a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear here. This decision for Quadzilla to be granted planning permission to do what it's doing was absolutely a political decision. The Conservative, the Tory party that was in power at the time, and still is, pushed through that application and said it is in the national interest that this occurs.
And I would like to interject here with a very important point, which is fuck the Tories.
Right.
Please
let me be clear here, and this is why I think it's a political. This is another case for why it's a political decision. There are a number of wind farms, and that they could have pushed through the planning permission for. There are a number of biomass reactor applications that they could have pushed the legislation through for. There are a number of energy capturing devices and storage devices to do with the pumping of water to higher levels, and then using that as a...
Which would have produced energy ethically and sustainably. Oh, and by the way, like the pumping the water to store the energy and use it as electricity later is a really interesting one, and it's all to do with the fact that our grid, right, operates at a certain power threshold, and that is often way above what we actually use, because in order to prevent the lights going off, you need to do that so when there's a spike it can handle it. And what what the water pumping essentially is you use the energy that you're not actually going to, that would be wasted otherwise, to pump water up a hill or whatever. And then when a spike occurs and you need that energy back, you release the water. So it basically increases the efficiency of the grid in total. Because I had to look that up when I first came across it, because I was like, wait, how does using energy to pump water up benefit us? Because that is essentially the energy you use is greater than the energy you get back. But on a whole, it makes it more efficient.
If you're wondering what happens to that excess energy currently, it's radiated out through basically giant electric radiators. That's how the excess is tapped off.
Global warming.
We just dump that heat into the atmosphere. It's not used in any useful way.
Yeah, but there's so many things we could do with it.
There is. Anyway, so
giant hydroponic systems. Anyway.
Yeah.
But then because then if you did that, the threshold would then have to be higher.
Yeah,
again,
because they need a steady supply.
Anyway,
there are other things that
giant batteries.
The other things that could have been pushed through are testing projects for
electrocuting Tories.
What's that power source that you really love for the UK?
What wave?
Wave, yeah, tidal energy system.
Tidal energy is fucking dope, especially when you live on a fucking island.
Yeah.
It's almost like we could generate like a third of our energy.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's a third of our current energy use, right? So if we combine that with I don't know, like social economic changes which allowed us to use less energy, like fridges that switch themselves off when they can, because you can do that a lot. Smart appliances, kettles that are more energy efficient, and all sorts of things of energy efficient light bulbs, introducing this idea of having solar panels and batteries at every home, as opposed to a can you afford it thing, just having it as no, this is a thing now, we do this.
Decentralising the power grid. Yeah,
what I'm essentially trying to say is we need to if we reduced our energy usage, we could easily cover our energy costs energy needs with wave energy, wind energy, and solar panels and heat sinks.
Yeah.
In the UK, we could become completely self-sufficient, which would then make it way easier to leave the EU. I'm just saying, because and also mean we're not dependent on Russia anymore, and it would be great because we would essentially be able to start doing a Sweden, right?
Yeah.
At that point.
Sweden? Do you mean Norway?
Norway, maybe. I'm not sure.
The one that's entirely run off geothermal.
I was thinking more of a Sweden, in that everybody's quality of life increases to the point where, a Sweden-Norway. We'd do a Sweden-Norway, and it would be dope. And not only that, but we are in a unique position with that, because there aren't many other countries that could do that because they aren't on an island, right? Because the fact that we're on an island gives us an awful lot of wind we can harness and an awful lot of wave energy, whereas somewhere like France would struggle an awful lot more because there isn't that. We could be there's an Akala song I really like, okay? And the lyrics in it is essentially we were in an empire, but what are we going to do next? I can't remember the lyrics now. I'm going to look it up.
Okay. I think it's worth noting here as well that Jake studied environmental sciences and knows what he's talking about when he's talking about like these different. Well, basically, the potential energy capacity of the UK when it comes to renewables. That is something that we have spoken about extensively, and is something that he specifically did look at. It was tidal energy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was looking at doing that for like it was a subject while I was at uni, and it was one that really interested me because I was like, wow, why don't we just fucking do this?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
So, you know, bringing it back to the fracking thing, it was a political decision to push through the planning application for that. And also I should add that the Quadzilla drilling site is a test site. They are gathering data here to see whether or not it will contaminate the water supply. So these microquakes are instances that potentially could cause the contamination of said water supply. Jake's just looked it up.
I've just looked it up, yeah. So it's a whole nation, this is empire. The question is, can we aspire to aim higher? Right?
Yeah.
Or any higher, I'm not sure which one it is. But, like, the gist of it, and that is the higher aim that we could reach, right? Because it's not about how much land you have anymore. It's not about, like, how many resources can you like... Secure and...
Exploit.
Thank you, Matt. Secure and exploit. See, this is why I keep Matt around. He just finishes all my sentences. It's perfect.
So I thought you were struggling to find a word.
I was. That's why I was like... I wasn't... Sorry, that wasn't sarcasm.
Oh, right.
Help me. I can't stop being sarcastic. Please help. That is the higher aim. You know, like it's all about becoming self-sufficient. It's all about utilizing technology in order to be able to create what you need in the country that you have without having to go elsewhere and fucking steal other people's shit. I'm looking at you, America. So like, yeah, like we can in the UK cover our energy costs easily. And we have an economy to do it as well. It's one of the best economies in the world at the moment. It's changing. Brexit. Well done, guys. Yeah, like, it's just... Oh, you can do the thing. Why don't we just do the thing? Because we're too busy, like, fucking eating McDonald's and watching TV and worrying about where our next paycheck's going to be and struggling to pay the rent and our...
Living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, and our fucking leaders are just like, well, we don't give a fuck because we're making money off of this, and the corporations are essentially just automatons at this point. They're not human beings anymore. It's just money, 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 money. How do I make enough money? I don't give a fuck about anything but how much money I can make.
Well, I would also argue it's... this is why I used the term corporatocracy earlier. The financiers and what politicians would call the wealth creators are responsible for also pushing policy. This is a bit of a complicated subject, but I mentioned earlier how Google has a lot of these algorithms that searches for content that is either technically illegal or they don't want on their site. YouTube also has this as well. They are in a monopoly when it comes to control of that sort of thing. I don't know. Another thing worth mentioning is things like shadow banning, which is where a person's content is banned, but they don't know that it's banned.
Oh yeah,
because their channel still appears normal, but people stop watching their videos, and it's because their videos have stopped appearing to other people.
I completely agree. It's all tied in.
Yeah.
And it's how do you combat the entire
and
problem.
Like this goes back to people being able to petition the government, corporations being able to do that. So you've got oil companies that hold a massive sway of influence over the agenda of politicians because they'll dangle over them this, well, you'll lose this many jobs for your constituency. You'll lose this energy security. You'll lose our investment into your campaign fund. This is not democracy.
No. It's might equals right.
And in this case, it's economic might, which is
it's always been economic might.
I mean, I get what you're saying there.
Well,
yes, but
you're right.
The strategy has completely changed.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll fight.
It's
wars.
not necessarily economic might because Mongols, but nowadays it is way more just like how much money do you have. But then maybe we just need the modern generation, the modern version of a Mongol horde. And maybe that's switching to radio and having a grassroots movement, or it might be something entirely different.
The way of countering that is grassroots stuff, which is to do with unplugging, going off grid, growing your own food, being self-sufficient.
Well, that's I agree. I want to do that. I don't know if that's necessarily the answer to humanity's problems.
I mean, all it takes is for about 1% of the population to do that, and politicians will start seeing it as an issue. Seriously.
Fair.
And then by that point...
Oh, no, okay, yeah, I see what you mean, yeah. No, all right. Not as a solution, but as a
catalyst to coming to the solution, yeah.
So, yeah, go off grid, guys. Why not? Life's short. What's the other solution? No. Like every now and then I'm just like, if I really cared about the environment, should I just kill myself? And that's dark, but like, if enough people did that,
funny enough,
that would also solve the problem.
There is actually a website, and it's a satire, but it's meant to represent like this religious movement. But the whole website is fake. It was made by a group of artists.
Right.
They're basically the original edgelords of the internet. I'm not even.
That's a bold claim.
Okay, I'm not even joking here though, because what this site is the Church of Euthanasia, and they have 4 pillars of belief, which is sodomy, cannibalism, euthanasia, and I think infanticide. I can't remember now. So it's saying everyone should be gay, so you don't have kids. Yeah. Anyone who commits suicide can commit suicide freely. Kill children, and it's basically like everything to like campaigning against. But it's to do with population control. Yeah. And they well. And one of their catchphrases is "Save the world, kill yourself."
Well, like, it's really interesting. Sorry, I just ate a cookie. That's why I'm chewing. It's interesting you say that because again, there was some sci-fi stuff that I read. Again, I can't remember off the top of my head where it was from, but there was this one idea of like, like suicide pacts were sent out to all citizens. It was just a thing, right? As a way of population control, as in like, hey, you ever feel the urge, do it, man. Like, you're doing us all a favour. Like...
Yeah.
And I could see that coming in.
Yeah.
Like, and it makes my face hurt because that's horrible. But like, oh. Anyway. Yeah. I'm not sure. I feel like we're kind of wrapping nicely into the end of this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, there is one caveat I'd add to this, which is that if you're gonna, if the campaign of kill yourself to save the planet is it ever kicks off, it should be if you are in a first world country, kill yourself. Third world, that's not so much an issue.
Yeah.
Yes, third world.
If you're in America, just do it.
Yeah, like the third world, yes, has the highest growing population, but it's the first world that is responsible for the most climate change per person.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact statistics now, but it was something like like 10% of the population is responsible for like 90%.
Yes, yeah, like.
Yeah, I'll look that up while you're talking.
Yeah, so I mean, to put it simply, like. The lifestyle of the 1%, for example, they have their own private jet. They fly around the world weekly. They use a shocking amount of land and eat and produce a huge amount of waste and live a very opulent lifestyle, all of which is very resource intensive. If they're a member of a golf course, yes.
World's richest 10% produce half of global carbon emissions.
There you go. So kill the world's top 10%. There you go.
Cut it by half.
You cut it by half.
Which is interesting because it's like you probably want more than that, to be fair. Like
cut it by half.
Take top 20.
Okay.
That includes me.
Me, I think.
I know. Most of the UK. Nah, better get poor. Better give away my money. That would be a really interesting fucking thing. Oh, that would be weird, right? So, like, if you could genuinely implement the top richest 20% of the population will get killed, right? And there was no way out of it.
We've had this conversation.
Have we?
I think.
No, we haven't.
Might have been with a friend of mine, actually.
No, but there was no way out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like
they just give their money away.
Like, can you imagine the storm that would occur? Like people would be giving their money away everywhere. It would be like how much money is safe, right? Like, oh, it'd be beautiful. Utterly beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, final thoughts.
The urge for rising up and toppling positions of power that I don't consider to be legitimate on a
Is rising.
ethical, moral, and spiritual level is rising.
Spirituality. Same. And
done. Credits.
Yeah. Same. Like, I don't think we're the only ones either. I think that's a. I feel like there is an awful lot of people. There's a large percentage of the population out there who are a couple of hours of education away from feeling the same way.
Yeah.
And I feel like we should go out there and talk to them.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm happy to end it there.
Yeah, me too.
All right. See you next time.
See you next time.